How to describe an explanatory knight's sword fight. Your lordship, I am your loyal fencing advisor Shinbai. I'm sure you'll be interested in fencing duels. Something like that. We also often see it in video games. Suppose you want to describe a paragraph in words. Wonderful knight sword fight. What points should be paid attention to? Let me briefly summarize for you today. First, you need to pay attention. We're talking about description, not actual teaching. Realism doesn't mean 100% authenticity, but to make the reader see the truth, to enhance expressiveness and ease of reading. You have to exaggerate where necessary. Secondly, the following content is mainly the skills of two-handed keys. Hand half button is also used, basically derived from Hanstaljo, first German architectural manuscripts, non-conscious building manuscripts, and other building materials, and some of the consultant's own insights. Here we go. The first point of chivalry is enlightenment. As the name suggests, revelation is the gesture of speaking. Revelation is the beginning of seeing. It is also the tactical style, an offensive and defensive inclination of both sides, the manifestation of direction. It is highly recommended that you begin your description. Show the happy event of both parties first, thus revealing the occupancy of the opponent, intent to attack, even traits of character. Of course, it's not just the beginning of the battle that sets out revelation in different rounds of the engagement. Both sides will keep reposing the revelation to facilitate further attack or defense. In addition, one revelation can also be quickly transformed into another to adjust the subsequent tactical direction. Common revelations in European swordsmanship have a tail, median lower tail, and hanging position, etc. A rise in the upper position is also called a rise in the forehead or because of a rise. As the name suggests, it is holding a sword in both hands. Raise the sword above your head. The blade is tilted back about 45 degrees. There is also a completely vertical upward technique. Generally speaking, the pace of this revelation is left foot in front, right foot behind. The archer is the left hand in the lower hand and the right hand in the upper hand. It's an aggressive revelation, usually connected once, top-down slash. At the same time, his widely exposed torso. This can be considered as a weakness. It can also be used as a trap, lure the enemy to attack from a low or medium position. Himself smashes the enemy on the head. We can learn from movies. In the opening excerpt of The Kingdom of Heaven, see this revelation. Diamonds call it La Posta di Focane, the guard of the hook strike from mine. I will never, said the Italians would call him Baz de Tifa. The Chinese New Year is because of the revelation. Suggestion. It can be used for more aggressive characters. We can also give this revelation ourselves. Go for some cooler names. Thunderbolt, Wrath of Heaven, etc. When people are describing, still need to explain the pace and the way you hold the sword. Next up, the median knight with both archers. I am proud to volunteer to make him a wonder of death. It is very figurative that it is stabbed outward. Bedroom horse pile. The pace of this revelation is in line with the high. The hands holding the sword are placed in front of the chest and abdomen. Fitness is tilted up 45 degrees, intermittently pointing at the opponent's throat. The reason why this kind of revelation is both offensive and defensive, because it can be more easily converted to other. It can also cause poor vision. Let the opponent misjudge the length of the weapon. In addition, when an adversary launches various attacks, the one who uses this revelation just has to step forward, can stab an enemy in the throat or face. No additional actions required. Of course, this revelation is when connecting various batches. There will be one more button lift action. This gives the opponent more time to react. This also describes the details of the battle, an entry point into the festival. In general, I think this kind of revelation is suitable for personality stability, a role that responds to change. If you want to give this revelation a new name, what would you call him? There are upper and middle. Naturally, there are lower positions. In fact, the Italians call him Boar Tooth or Iron Gate. Diego Ren called him Piambit. Actually, he usually walks with his right foot in front and his left foot behind. Hands in front of abdomen. Fitness is tilted down about 45 degrees. This type of play It can be connected to the upward convex or upper cape. Defensive aspect. It is easier to defend against attacks on the legs and torso. Of course, it's called the end credits. He naturally also has a right-hand opponent attacking the upper part, and quickly counterattack with an upward thrust. Personally, I find this revelation more suitable for technical and knowledgeable characters, and there are several variants of low-level revelation. So let's talk a little bit about that. For example, the half-iron gate that skews to the left outside of the fitness, and the opposite, a full iron gate that leans completely to the right outside. Both of these revelations can be connected to a side hack, or prick full bore pressure similar to half-iron gates. After fitness is recycled to the front foot and closer to the crotch, it can attach powerful upward spikes, or after defending against the opponent's slash. A bottom-up split. A semi-wild boar duck is a whole wild boar duck. Rotate your feet back within 180 degrees. It can mainly deal with enemy attacks from two directions. These relatively niche variants can add some thought to your battle description, but remember to describe these kinds of revelations clearly. Otherwise, it is easy to cause confusion among readers. During the description process, the character's unfamiliarity with some discriminatory variants, it can also be a disadvantage for him, and one side's knowledge of the other's knight can also be used as important information. Increase his battlefield advantage. Below is the hanging knight. That is, the hands are on the side of the forehead. Fitness parallel ground forward or slightly downward. This revelation has left and right poses. Left foot in front, hands on the right side of the forehead, and cross grip the keys. On the contrary, the right foot is in front. Hold the keys normally with both hands on the left side of the forehead. This kind of play can be used for axis rotation fitness with the right hand. Slash your opponent's head diagonally, or directly on the high convex times. More important, suspended knight. It is more convenient to defend against opponents against the head and upper body cuts. Another kind of juxtaposition is called the window or bull knight. It is mainly to exercise on the basis of hanging, placed in front of the forehead. At the same time, the center of gravity is thick, easier to defend. The gut is actually based on the middle stomach. Put your arm forward. Extend the reach of fitness, directly pointing at an opponent's face as a deterrent. This kind of revelation is mainly used to maintain distance from opponents. Leave and test your opponent in constant motion. Find a breakthrough, or let the enemy misjudge the distance. Enter the attack range. Personally think, this revelation is in a state of anxiety. Is a good breakthrough. Can be used to describe some deadlocked battles. The use of the tail bit is actually based on the lower bit. Point the fitness at an oblique rear about 45 degrees. This exposes your shoulders. Lure the opponent to attack. You can also hide your weapons, causing the opponent to misjudge the length of the weapon. Maybe he's fit for some public calculation. A knowledgeable character who is good at deceiving enemies. And the last one is the bipedal revelation. This revelation hands on chest. Fitness is parallel to the ground. Point at the enemy's chest or throat, etc. At this point, the left hand should be placed on the counterweight ball. Footwork, he can go with his left foot in front. You can also put your right foot in front. In general, this is a pass left. Hand push against counterweight ball to strengthen the inspiration of the puncture attack. Through the adjustment of fitness angle, he can also stab enemies in the face or legs. Personally think, and it was a very radical revelation, suitable for use during full force attacks. The above revelations can basically be covered. Most of the European swordsmanship, you are describing the beginning of a battle, and at the beginning of each round. These various revelations can be appropriately described. A knight can not only express a discerning character, it can also show his battle at different stages of the battle. Technology and mindset changes. So for example, a reality where gestures are always present, suddenly swung a pair of feet. Revelation, probably because he's in a hurry to attack. Of course, different revelations. There are many variations in the specific application. Deal with attacks connected by different revelations. There are different ways. If there is a chance in the future, we can discuss in detail in combination with practice. So let's talk about moving feet. Movement is especially important in an architectural showdown, but the details vary. It's by no means clear in a few words. Here we mainly look at some principles. Click first. In the process of expressing movement, so the idea of center of gravity has to be taken seriously, no matter what kind of martial arts. Keeping the center of gravity stable is the foundation of everything. Stable lower order. You can give excellent advice. Identify the perfect attack platform. Therefore, during the battle, lower the weight for stability, or move the heavy weight to change position. It's all actions that can be mentioned. The position of the center of gravity should also be based on different starts. Show adjustment, and feel free to follow the next move. At the same time, when you mention the center of gravity of one side, when doubtful or unstable, it's probably time for him to expose his weakness and make his control of the center of gravity wrong. It can be the opponent's first yang, light film bit of vigorous attack, or a close confrontation, and additional actions like kicking, and then the footsteps. Footsteps move the center of gravity, and other tactical maneuvers. Generally speaking, the feet of knowledge are open, pointing your toes at your opponent. The back foot is on the diagonal of the front foot. The toes are slightly tilted to the outside. Conventional mobile draws a circle with the center of gravity as the circle. One foot should be rounded. Move in the corresponding direction outside. The other foot quickly follows to keep the center of gravity steady. Of course, sometimes there are pads. For example, in tactical movements such as aggressive stabs. In addition, during the movement, should keep your central axis aligned at all times to obtain the best attack range. At this time, myopic eyes should always pay attention to their opponents, rather than your own arrows. In describing the battle, body axis is not facing the enemy. Can be said as a mistake. The opponent can take advantage of this opportunity to gain an offensive advantage. Of course, the enemy will think. Try to shift your central axis away from him and have his axis facing you. During eye contact, the warring parties are likely to have been constantly moving their feet, step by step to gain an advantage on the central axis. You are in the process of describing. It is also possible to highlight the competition for this advantage. In another gorgeous battle, they roll over from time to time. Special movements like bouncing, since you are describing rather than actually fighting. Things you can't do by yourself. You can let the characters do it. And finally, there's a concept of remnants in Japanese road construction. And this is true in other buildings as well. When both sides complete an attack and defense over the opponent's position, when facing away from each other, you should turn around as quickly as possible. Face the central axis towards each other. At the same time, look directly at the opponent. Always be ready to keep fighting. Now let's talk about combat. In common duels, the main methods of attack are slashing and stabbing, which hack has horizontal, vertical, oblique. It can also be divided into top-down and hacking from the bottom up. The spikes are top-down, bottom-up, etc. in different directions. In addition, blades can be mainly divided into strong and weak blades. It ends roughly at the end of the blade. Near the tip of the arrow, this is the weak blade. Near the handle, this side is tough. Toughness is better at blocking and confrontation. Weak toughness is mainly used to attack opponents' bodies. I am Yanggong. There are a lot of variations in specific attacks. You can use your rich imagination. Perform permutations. Here we mainly pay attention to some key points. When split diagonally downward, the hand and hilt should be kept deflected on the central axis. Fitness to complete the diagonal chop. The main purpose is to prevent the other party from prematurely judge the direction of your batch cutting. It also reduces redundancy. Accelerate attack speed. In addition, it can also be quickly switch to another revelation or attack action. In the description, you can let the less skilled party during the oblique chop, hand and hilt off axis. We are at a disadvantage. Second, when attacking, one should pay attention to the core strength of the waist and abdomen. Use waist and abdomen strength to push the whole arm and swing it common, rather than wielding the sword with the strength of the arm and forearm. You can also describe. Both sides wield their swords in these two different ways, and pointed out that the former is far more effective than the latter. The third is sword holding, with the tiger's mouth facing forward, same direction as the blade. To ensure that the blade strikes the opponent at the correct angle, and avoid reverse lying. When learning sword pose for beginners, can make him hold the sword the wrong way, causes the blade not to hit the opponent at the correct angle. The sword should be held relatively relaxed. Don't hold on to the hilt firmly. It should be hitting. Instant power. Push the sword out with the power of both hands. Of course, there will be other grips as well, but we're not going to go any further here. Fourth, the target of the attack should be clear when attacking. In particular, one should identify the weaknesses of the enemy, such as neck, head, etc. If the opponent is wearing armor, you should focus on attacking the armor. Weaknesses such as gaps in faces, sometimes the deflecting effect of armor on weapons. It can also be within the scope of description. Fifth, in addition to batch cutting and stimulation, there are also some relatively rare attacks. For example, left-hand grip fitness. Hit the opponent with a gauntlet or counterweight ball, or hit with the body. Attack opponents by kicking, etc. Interspersed with these plots in battle, it can make the description of the confrontation more rich and diverse. Increase tension. The more powerful the knowledge in the sixth attack, there's less movement. His every defense can continue the next attack as quickly as possible. When describing such a master, don't let him take back his sword every time. Rearrange the revelation. Proceed to the next tactical move. When he raised his fitness defense, a swordsman who has not yet been approved and successfully disarmed, you can directly next batch to receive a batch hack attack, instead of swinging back the median apocalypse at the table key cleavage. Seventh, when blocking with the key, don't let the highly skilled know. Like some video distances, forcefully block the opponent's slash vertically. It should be done with ingenuity. Bounce or deflect an opponent's sword at a small angle, and always seize the opportunity to connect a counterattack action. Instead of the enemy cutting him down, block the sword. The enemy is cutting him down and reaching out to block him. Of course, if you happen to be describing a Kaniao, you can tell him what to do. Eighth, some special blocking skills are worth learning from. For example, in the movie Kingdom of Heaven, the actor is in Shanwo. Duel with the Saracens. The upper block it uses. This is a kind of waist, abdominal strength and foot rotation fitness. Use dexterity to block the skills that have not yet been attacked. It can be used to defend against common. It should also be able to defend against riding hair like in the movie. Of course, I haven't tried it myself. May not be able to prevent its appearance. But since you are in the process of having authentic literary description, it doesn't hurt to write that way. Ninth, remember to consider injuries. The influence of tactical movements, such as movements and footsteps. This may be in the description. The only thing more real than the real battle. Certainly, I'm talking about the right in the time and space we live in. Fight because we are in the process of training. You can't really cut your opponent. Therefore, when writing, can appear after some weight loss. Hold on to the battle scene. It cannot be simulated in reality practice. You can make a sword. The master was injured in a small accident during the battle, so as to balance the strength of both parties. Of course, your description. Cold weapons that can be compared to real weapons in history. The battle is a little more dramatic. After all, in reality, in many cases, it's almost impossible to keep fighting after being injured. And I'll leave you with a few notes. In fact, the principles of combat. The first thing to remember is that this is interpretation, not actual combat. As mentioned earlier, this is a realistic description, rather than shooting with real swords. To grasp the balance between authenticity and drama. If there is no intuitive feeling, take a sword or stick and draw it yourself, or just go to the sword fighting club to experience it. Not bad. Second, think in slow motion. Real battles often take place in lightning time. Everything is fast, but you have to slow down when you write about combat. Break each action apart, explaining Kunlun master animation. In a few seconds of the game, it can. The method of putting several episodes. You can choose to use it. Of course, words for speed. The sentence reflects the true rhythm of the battle. Is also very necessary. Interspersed with the expression of the person who expresses the right. Changes in the surrounding environment, like leaves, birds, dust, etc., can reflect the speed and intensity of the battle. Third, when arranging the opposing sides, In order to avoid the homogeneity of the two's records, speed can be appropriately allocated between the two swordsmen. Skill and strength. Let the two sides reflect different characteristics. Finally, remember to consider the role of armor in advance. Reality training. Battles are usually fought fairly, but in your plot, the two sides may have encountered each other. Then the armor-piercing party will have an innate advantage. Even a master of swordsmanship, facing a heavily armored enemy, we have to adjust our tactical caution. For example, increase the confrontation first, drain each other's strength, attack gaps in enemy armor, etc. In all seasons. The above content, it's all me, describes some experiences in knight sword fighting. Not complete, but it should open up more ideas for you. I hope you can find it in the new epic. Record more exciting fencing duels. Have a chance. We can also focus on the details. Carry out detailed. See you next time.